Welcome back. In this episode, we're going to hear from Daniel Keyworth, who's the Director of Business Technology with McLaren Racing, and Robert McCardle, who's the Director for the Ford Threat Research Team at Trend Micro. And they're going to talk all things technical as they delve into emerging technology. Thank you both for joining us here today. We hear an awful lot about the cat and mouse dynamic driving innovation. Dan, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, we work in this incredible sport where cat and mouse becomes is all part of the motorsport spirit. You're always chasing your competitors up and down the grid, and that allows you to always think forward. You know, how do we go and beat our competitors? So the cat and mouse game really kind of makes you focus on innovation and say, you know, how do we as a race team always be better? And that's the beauty of it, right? When you were in the world of competition,
we have teams constantly thinking, how do we get ahead of them? What are we going to do next? And there is that tussle, that kind of cat and mouse of like who's in the lead at any given time, but there's a difference between leading and winning, right? It's all about who's leading at that critical moment, the moment when the attack is launched, or I guess in your industry, like at the finishing line is all that matters, right? So
yeah, so true. It's a kind of a race on and off the track. You're always trying to figure out, are we that one step ahead that we think of our competitors? And you know, in the type of motorsport, the score almost takes care of itself, so you kind of see what the effect of that is on the track. But yeah, it's always good to keep one eye on your competitors, but also one eye on yourself as well. You know, what do we need to do and what do we need to be doing better in order to be the best versions of ourselves?
Absolutely, yeah, 100% agree on that.
How do you constantly adapt and innovate to stay ahead of your competitors or your adversaries?
I think it comes down to the cultures within teams as well, right? So you need to make sure that you have a kind of culture of like lifelong learning, people who embrace just constantly learning new things, new innovations and what comes with that. And also then having that combined with a real culture of no blame whatsoever, so that people can take risks. And we obviously, if we have success, then we all celebrate that together. But if there's failures, you don't blame the person, you look at it as a problem, and everybody comes together with a new challenge to kind of, you know, look at in that space. And I think actually another aspect of that is having key partners like ourselves, where you have somebody with the same type of passions and cultures maybe, but that has a different viewpoint than you, but the same vision, and ultimately wants to do the same thing. What you think?
Yeah, we're exactly the same. I think we like to say we either win or we learn. Mm-hmm. You know, every time what you probably class as failure in other industries is an opportunity and an ability to be better. So actually you embrace those learning points. No blame culture. You know, winner's mindset is something that motorsport certainly encourages you to do. And likewise on the partner front, you know, we're quite a lean team. There's only so much we can achieve within our own group of people. So, you know, we rely on people and partners that are experts in their own domains to kind of be the team behind the team, so that we know that all the things that perhaps we're not so great at, we've got a calming voice behind us that can guide us and direct us in the right direction.
Yeah, I think it's surprising how many synergies there can be when you start having conversations, even in different industries, how the same challenges are essentially being faced in like different ways, but like it helps each of us learn.
How do you and your team constantly react to any threats or competition that are coming your way?
So I think like there's always that balance between reacting to what's going on and then being proactive and getting ahead of it. And you can't do one without the other, so there does have to be in balance. So we have probably similar challenge to yourself, vast amounts of data that we have to sift through at any given time to figure out what is happening and go on. And of course, within those moments, you're effectively reacting to what you are seeing. But you're doing that based on having looked over all that data in the past, having predictive models and know what to do when you see certain things. So one very much informs the other, I think.
Yeah, I think very similar. We have this sort of proactive approach before we go into a race weekend, which is we know the obvious parameters available to us. We've got a whole load of historical data. So we run, hundreds of thousands of simulations that say, how do we think the race might game out? Yep. And then of course we go into qualification on the weekend, and then suddenly the grid is fixed for the race day. And suddenly you're presented with a new equation to solve, which is, well, this is where you're going to start. Where could you potentially finish, and what strategies you need to employ? And of course, the race happens, and anything can happen from a crash, and you need to react and employ certain strategies in order to make your way back up to the front. So you're right, the two go hand in hand. You can't do one or the other. You've got to have a proactive approach to be like, am I ready for the world I'm about to launch myself into? But also have the tools and everything in your kit in the event that you have to react into certain scenarios.
Yeah, very much. And when those scenarios happen, I think it might catch people by surprise. But we actually have thought through a lot of those already. So it's very much a case that it might be a surprise in the second, but then you go to the strategy that you had. You just go through the playbook.
Yeah, and I think engineering mindset is always, oh, do you remember what happened in Mexico last year? And suddenly you've got this new data point that will allow you to inform and be better the next time round. I think that's the beauty and the evolution of motorsport, is that you always want to be better than you were yesterday. So there's this kind of 1% improvement day in, day out, and actually that builds up to a culture of success as well.
Very much.
When we think about both Trend and NEOM McLaren formerly, we always want to stay ahead. How is AI transforming your approach to that constant need to stay ahead?
Everybody's having to embrace AI in one way or another. I think there's certainly AI for good, which is that allows us to be more productive. It allows us to take the things out of our day that perhaps we don't enjoy doing and create the creative mind space to be good scientists and engineers, which is what lots of people want to do. But also there's kind of AI for bad as well, and we talk about this a lot, which is it can be used against you, and actually you then need to employ other AI techniques to kind of react and respond to those, particularly in the cybersecurity space, where threat actors are equally probably using as much AI as we are to defend it. But in some way you welcome it as well, because all that's doing is giving you more knowledge and learning of the types of attacks and vectors that are out there that people may be trying to employ against you. So whether that's your competitors or in some cases your enemies.
How do you both leverage AI to solve challenges that come your way?
I think as you say, AI has become more advanced, then you can start to be using Gen AI in a way that says, how do these things become more predictable, and how can we look at the future in almost a real context, and say these are probably actually the different scenarios that may play out in real life, rather than having a sort of a mass of scenarios that kind of either become true or false. So it's a super exciting space. Yeah,
you can kind of create almost like digital twins of the different scenarios that you think you're going to come up against.
Yeah.
So.
We started this conversation listening to you talking about the cat and mouse dynamic. How do you see it shaping the future of both the cybersecurity industry and motorsports?
And I think that kind of constant battle of cat and mouse is something that probably motivates both of our industries, right? Whereas in other industries, they might find it frustrating that things are constantly changing. In both of ours, it's just such part of the DNA of the organizations that you have this. But I also think that in the modern kind of with AI and things coming on board, we actually stand at a point where in cybersecurity in particular, we are set to jump far ahead of the adversaries if we want to, because adversaries in our space are maybe a little bit sometimes slow to adapt things. But on the other side, while they're maybe a bit slow to adapt some of these things, our industries are investing billions across the entire industry in how do we embrace this technology and really stand a chance to jump significantly ahead of the attackers as a result.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's why our partnership's been so great. Obviously, us, investing alone into trying to solve some of those problems is not possible. Given your guys' industry experience and the multiple customers that you have and all the different insight you have from the industry, that allows you to invest in your products, get them to world championship level, which is what we obviously strive for on the track. And then obviously we benefit from that great partnership and the ability to protect us wherever we are in the world.
And on that, we all know that the pace of technology moves incredibly quickly. Do we think the pace that it's moving is going to increase the challenge in that?
I think the pace of a technology, I think like all technologies, when they come out first, the kind of pace of change can actually, people can find that scary even, right? But then it's suddenly fast forward a year or two and you're suddenly in a place where you think how could we live without this technology? So you go back to any major disruptions. Take when airplanes came along for the first time, people were terrified and they shrank the entire planet effectively. So we see that now today with technologies like AI and so on, that people are afraid of the edge cases that they're worried about. But in a year or two's time, just the power that they can bring to both industries and just the wider industry is going to be immense in terms of how we protect people.
Yeah, I agree. And you look at the exponential curve and it looks quite scary and you think, when does it stop? But if you don't embrace it, you tend to get left behind and either sometimes cease to exist. So, really important to embrace it. And as you say, it almost becomes the new normal.
Yep.
It's like, what's the next technology wave that's coming, and what does that new exponential curve look like? So, the trend is always up.
Yep.
It's just, how brave you are to ride the wave.
Very much so. Well said.
Thank you so much for joining us here today and for the amazing conversation that's taking place. We heard from both of you and both organisations about how we live, we breathe, we sleep technology, and how you're both overcoming challenges that come your way on a daily basis. I think you've given our audience a lot to think about and certainly a lot to learn from you both. So thank you so much for your time.
Thanks very much.